Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us in tonight's edition of Viewpoint. Viewpoint is your favorite evening debate talk show that talks about issues related to the society as a whole. And in today's edition, we are going to be focused on education and the youth empowering themselves to be job creators and not job seekers. To discuss about this, we are having with us as guest in the studio Dr. Denise Besa. He is a doctor of philosophy in the University of Douala. Good evening to you, Dr. Denise, and thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Good evening, Vanessa. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
It's our pleasure having you, though for the first time.
It's the first time. I'm so excited.
We are excited as well. Mange Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening to our viewers. It's a pleasure being there for them, and if you would permit me, I would greet two persons who are watching us from Yaoundé. I want to talk about a childhood friend. He's from Jakiri. He's called Mr. Ban Aaron Bonkin, and Mr. Wulba Kevin Lemnyoy. They are Yaoundé. They are my childhood friends from Jakiri.
Your greeting goes to them.
Yes.
Let us take the first part of the show. If you are just tuning in, you're watching Viewpoint broadcast from Monday to Friday at 6:30 p.m. and equally being aired on Facebook. Cameroonian students graduate to be job seekers and not job creators. Anyone at fault? Doctor, should we blame anyone? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Venashus?
Yes, Vanessa.
Yes. And is there a possibility of reversing the situation? Mange Venashus?
Of course, if there is someone to be blamed, then there is a possibility of reversing the situation, yes.
Dr. Denise?
Yes, the situation can be reversed.
It can be reversed, and in a way to find out how the situation can be reversed, stay tuned for the debate. Cameroonian students graduate to be job seekers and not job creators. Anyone at fault? Dr. Denise, you think that there should be some people or somebody to be blamed? So who should be blamed for the fact that a lot of students, they graduate just to go look for a job rather than creating this job of empowering themselves?
I think unemployment is not only a social or an economic problem. It's also a personal problem. So there are three people that can be blamed in this issue of unemployment. Three persons can be blamed.
So who are those that can be blamed then?
The first person to be blamed, of course, is the state. It's the state that has to create jobs. The state is the one that accompanies students at primary level, primary school level, secondary school level, and university level. So the state is blamed because our educational system does not fit with the context of employment. The state cannot employ everybody, of course, but if you look at our educational system, you will see that you are training students to become
job hunters
instead of job creators. The state is putting more emphasis on certificates than on employability. So if you have to look at the way we train our students from primary school to university level, there's a really gap between the level of education and the employability, the capacity of for one to get a job. When you have a student that goes to school without knowing what he wants to be tomorrow, without knowing what he wants, the profession he wants to follow up in future, then such a student will always be a job hunter. So the state is blamed. Now the society is also blamed because parents are the one who know their children at early age, and they are the one to accompany them as they send them to school. You can't have a child who is good in technical matters, in repairing things at home, but you decide to send him instead to a general education.
Grammar school.
Grammar school. After that school, he will not have the job because he will not have the competency that go along with the job he is going to be looking for. Now, the student himself is to be blamed because as an individual person, everybody has his natural competencies, his natural potentialities. We need to put our potentialities at the service of our education. If I know that I'm a good technician, I should not accept to go to further my studies in general education. At one point, I am the one to decide that I need to be this in future, so I need to follow this type of education.
This type of education.
Yes.
Now, Doctor, given that you're confronted with these students, university students, almost every day, and you're faced with them, you know their challenges, you know their difficulties. I believe that the government has provided a lot of learning institutions, be it the grammar school or vocational training, to train the students. So they are the ones that decide their path. So with this, how do you inculcate the value of when they graduate? What should they be looking for?
When a student graduates at the university level, he should be looking for a job that corresponds to his academic training. You cannot have a bachelor degree in Spanish, but because you think that you love German, you want to be a German teacher. I was faced with that situation in an entrance examination in one of our schools at university level. You will meet a student who will tell you that I like German, but I could not do German at university level. I went for Spanish, but I want to be a German teacher in future. There's a really incompatibility between the certificate I have and the job I want to follow up. So there must be a sort of adequacy between the training and the job. I am trained in philosophy. Now I'm a philosophy lecturer. If I'm not trained in philosophy, I will not be a good philosophy lecturer. Then I will not be happy with the profession I've embraced. And today we are saying, the people say in Cameroon that you cannot choose anymore. You need not choose a job. There's no vocation anymore. You just embrace any type of job because you need bread. You need to take care of yourself and of your family. But the matter is, which kind of job can I embrace with which kind of certificate? If I have a bachelor degree, because I've been failing École Normale, higher teachers training college, I will not go to write a NAM for customs. I will write custom, and which type of I can say which type of custom manager will I be if I did not have the training that goes alongside
with the job. Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis Shislen. He blames the state, the society, and the students themselves for being job seekers and job creators. Mange Fenashus, your point of view, you could think that someone should be blamed for this.
Of course, Vanessa, someone should be blamed for this. And when I'm looking at those to be blamed, I begin with the educational system, like Doctor was saying. If you look at the educational system that we have in our country, you know, we inherited the system we have from the colonial masters, and our colonial masters they gave us fish rather than teaching us how to catch fish. If they taught us how to catch fish, we would not be here where we are. I remember we just had this challenge that we had, this COVID-19 pandemic. How many laboratories, university laboratories that we have in this country? We have a whole ministry that is in charge of scientific research. What did that ministry do? What I mean here is, we were not taught to live on our own way. You know, we were brought up to understand that you have to, you know, take what comes from outside. I remember when we were in school, like the doctor was saying, by the time you are finishing class 7, because I studied for 7 years, you know, those who were intelligent enough to pass the common entrance in list A went to government schools. Then those of us who were dull, who could not pass in list A, we went to SAR SM, technical school, which means technical school was for dull students and grammar school, government school was for intelligent students. And it was like a pride, you know, at the time, to go to government school. I mean, we used to say you are wearing the uniform that takes you to lycée. It was like, you are out of the normal, normal village life. But then it dawned onto us that the reality, the opposite of what we were living, was true.
That's true.
Because in real sense, those who were supposed to go to technical schools were those who were intelligent. Then those of us who were dull were supposed to go to government school. Because in government school, you simply read literature and you read history. They tell you what Hitler did. They are not telling you what Foncha did. They are not telling you what Ahijo did. They are telling you what Napoleon did in France. And at the end, you graduate. Whereas in a technical school, you start. I remember my classmate, that's the person I was greeting, Aaron Ban. We graduated from class 7 the same year. And just 2 years in a technical school, he could, make shutters, door shutters, frames, started roofing houses, started working, earning money, which means he could pay my school fee. Whereas the same classmate that we graduated from, who went to secondary school, was still practically in Form 2, Form 3. You could as well write the 10,000 very well, but you cannot convert the 10,000 into money and use. So what they gave us was, they taught us to to be dependent. They never taught us to be independent. Now, and at the time, how many technical schools were available? Only SMs that ended only in year 2. After year 2, you are half baked. Yes, because you cannot boast to be a carpenter. You cannot boast to be a bricklayer. You are just introduced into all these fields, and you are abandoned. Of recent, when did we start having technical universities in Cameroon? What type of technique do we want to instill in our youth? Now, away from our educational system, let's look at the gap between the private sector and the civil service. In Cameroon, I remember my father used to tell us that in those days, the early days of Cameroon's independence, if a civil servant bought a car, a commission of inquiry will be set behind him or her to find out, where did you get the money to buy a car? Because they know your salary, they know for how long you have worked, and you buy a car for 10 million, 2 million. Where did you get the money from? But now we have the opposite. That's what is happening. A civil servant, within 2-3 years, he is building a mansion, he is riding in a car. Where is the money coming from? Whereas those in the public service, they are practically not even surviving. The salaries are not what is the minimum salary that we have? Correct. So all this put together, each child, immediately you are going to school, your idea is, how do I have a matricule to work in the civil service? You don't want to, how do I employ somebody? No, all you want to do is, I want to apply any concours. Immediately you are writing the A level, you start thinking of concours that are available. And what doctor was saying, we have Cameroonians who go in for 1, 2, 3, 4 concours at the same time. The one that comes. Maybe that falls,
that the parents should be blamed for that.
Of course.
Because even the parents, they prepare their children for that same process.
Vanessa, I also had parents.
You have to go
I also had parents here as another category of Cameroonians to be blamed, because they don't actually, drill their children to tell them this is the reality in life, or try to decipher, to identify in their children the dispositions, the hidden talent that their children, are born with. You cannot have a child, like Doctor was saying, who is in the house. You find a child that the child loves handwork, and you go and register a child in a government high school. What do you want from that child? Send the child to a technical school. Another problem is our orientation services in our schools. Of recent, we were talking about this department of orientation in our schools. The purpose is to guide the children. They call it counseling, guidance counseling. Now they're supposed to find out from the child, where are your hidden talent. They are supposed to identify it in the child, and then help orientate the child to take a course in education that will help that child in future, rather than just, because some of us find ourselves already graduating from the university, and when they ask you, what do you want to do, you may be surprised that you don't even know what you want to do.
And you're already graduating from the university. Graduates that studied English.
Of course.
And they graduated.
They study English, they study sociology, and they come out. Somebody was making a joke that most schools now, you just go to, after university, you become a teacher, because you graduate with, you have a degree in geography, you have a degree in history. What would you do, at least in Cameroon? You become a history teacher, you become a geography teacher in a secondary school. Remember, you did not go to ENS. You are not a teacher by profession, but like Doctor was saying, you have to eat, you have to put food on the table, you have to take care of our family. You find yourself teaching. And from there, that is just how your future has been, tied down because of poor planning, poor programming, poor orientation that you had. I think these are, when we put them together, you see that most of our university graduates, they would graduate to be job seekers and not job creators because they never had the opportunity to explore their talent. Some of them don't even know what they are capable of, because they have never been given the opportunity.
Anyway, this question is being brought up to sensitize mostly the parents and the students to be aware in whatever path they choose to go. Very important. And let us take a second question. Is there a possibility of reversing the situation? Dr. Dennis, you think that anyway, if we have identified the problem, then probably we should have a solution. So what should be done at this stage?
At this stage, it's difficult to solve the problem, but since the problem has been identified, the first thing and the most important thing is decolonizing our educational system. We need to have an educational system which fits into our own realities. Correct. Why do children need to learn German and English, and we can even say English and French, our official languages, but German and Spanish and all the rest is for which use? You speak English, German, Spanish, but don't know how to speak a local language. And then you claim to be a Cameroonian. It's difficult. We need to rewrite all our curricula so that the studies, the training we are giving to our children from nursery to university level reflects our socio-cultural realities. So much so that if a child has a degree, a diploma, a certificate, that certificate enables him to be inserted in the Cameroonian context. There needs to be a real correspondence between the educational system and the system of production. So the informal sector needs to be valorized, because the state cannot employ everybody, but every youth wants to become a civil servant. How can we be civil servants, all of us? So the second thing is that we need to give more importance to vocational schools. We need to create schools that have as an aim training students for a job. I'm being trained to be a lawyer, not because I read law, but because I've been working with lawyers even at secondary school level. Students need to be having internships, be it on grammar school or technical schools. They need to be in practical internships. So much so that if I want to be a teacher, even at secondary school level, I can already learn how to teach. The practical should be brought at grammar schools and vocational schools. Students need to be sent on internship as part of their training. At the end, then, if the informal sector is being valorized, we say we must create jobs. We cannot create a job out of nothing. So the state has to accompany the students, accompany by giving them funds. If we have an engineer who wants to build something, the state can give him the money that's necessary for his creation. So much so that at the end he's useful for our own society. But what happens is that we have a road to be built, we call Chinese. We have something to be done, we call foreigners. Whereas we are training students at Polytech all over our country. Over
the country, but yet we call foreigners to come and do the job.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mange Finashus. Among the points he has highlighted, decolonizing the educational system, valorizing the informal sector, creating vocational schools, and of course the state providing funds for the students. What more can they do?
Vanessa, let me begin with the government. Of recent here, you discovered that about some 2 years ago, Cameroonian children, and most of these youths, they are below 15 years. They have been rampant on social media with fascinating discoveries and and technical development that have been going on. I remember there was a young man who was able to manufacture a plane, and he had to fly the plane for a certain distance. What happened to that child? In a normal, I call it a normal society, that child was supposed to be taken exactly to a polytechnic school and develop that competency. If that child could be able, with rudimentary tools and raw material, fabricate a plane that could fly, why not develop those rudimentary tools into conventional, which means he knows that this is what we need. Okay, if we buy this tool, the standard one, it means this child can build a plane. If they bring his know-how, put them together, government assist him, like he was saying, which means this child could build a plane. Would Kamiko not fly? If this child was able to, some, you see them, they are able to make crans, they are able to make tractors from rudimentary, which means they understand the techniques. And I think that at their age, we will not say that they taught them in school. These are God-given talent, which we need to exploit. Very soon, there is this syndrome of brain drain that is happening with the youth. With this thing we keep on saying, visa card, DV cards that they are going to America. You cannot be without anything and you win the card, a DV lottery. Americans must be able to identify a talent in you, and once they take it, you go out there, you become an American, and very soon you're already. How many Cameroonians are working in you now
work for the development of their country?
Of course. Now, if we had to take these children who had this hidden talent, explore them, it is Cameroon that is advancing. It is not the individual. Doctor was saying something that we need to rewrite our educational curricula. It is high time that we passed this question of what is your qualification. We should be asking, what can you do? In civilized societies, they don't ask you to bring your document. Only who wants to see your certificate? Can you present Viewpoint? Yes, this is the plateau. Go to Viewpoint and present. If you meet the criteria of the producer, you have the job. Can you work in this office? Yes, this is the office. Go in there and work. If you meet the demands, the challenges of that profession, you have the job. But what do we do here in Cameroon? What qualification do you have? You see Cameroonians with bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate degree. Vanessa was saying that we have university graduates who graduate from the university and cannot write a simple application. Even if they struggle to now that everything is found on Facebook or in Google, once they download it, to write it, you see the kind of English that they write. You see the kind of language composition, the spellings that you write, and you ask which type of university they are graduating from. These are university graduates.
That's why at times when I find myself with a certain entourage, I used to encourage them not to keep or put this syndrome in their children to always come back with the 20 over 20.
Of course.
What else can they do?
That
away
is the
from
point.
Just reading their notes and
they cram. They have been taught to cram and reproduce.
Exactly.
They don't produce from them. You just. I remember when we were doing a certain defense, and one lecturer asked me, "What is your contribution to this topic?" And I started quoting, this doctor said this doctor, yes, he acknowledged it and said, yes, this is what this doctor said. What is your own? This is where we want your own here. When you are graduating from university, you should have your own contribution. That's where we make a difference. But we keep, copying, and most of the time we even copy without identifying the source, without acknowledging the source. That is where we have our problem. Now, Vanessa, we look at, doctor said something about vocational training. If you tend to ask, how many schools were created this year? Out of the schools that were created, how many of them are technical schools? Away from that, let's look at the 2021 budget. If you look at the 2021 budget, how many or what amount of the budget was allocated to the Ministry of Professional and Vocational Training in Cameroon?
That's how much.
And how much was allocated to the Ministry of Secondary Education in Cameroon? Because secondary education had 383 billion francs. Whereas the Ministry of Professional Vocational Training had about 4 or 8 million. What training do we want? Where is our priority? Is our priority on having, a degree in history, in geography, in Spanish, in German, like you were saying? And then, when it comes to professional training, we don't even have the tools in our professional schools. We don't even have the tools, and we want to teach these children. How do we teach them? How would they become job creators rather than becoming job seekers? That is where we have to come back to that very issue of, like he was saying, rewriting our curricula. Let us also reformat our mentality when it comes to our educational system. If we prioritize technical schools, somebody was saying the other day that these telephones that we use, they don't make them, they also make them a secondary school. But in our polytechnic, we can't even fabricate it. Even if the child who had the capacity to fabricate it, we don't have the tools. We don't even accompany them. When you give a Ministry of Professional and Vocational Training 8 million, I think it was about 8 million, what would he do with the 8 million? Can 8 million even furnish the furniture of one technical school in Cameroon? I mean, all of the budget. Can it even furnish a technical school in Cameroon? Whereas secondary school education, you give 383 billion francs CFA. So when we put this, we see that the government's target is not even on trying to diversify or trying to put, you know, interest on made in Cameroon. Because I remember the Prime Minister, when he was presenting the budget, he said the idea is to encourage made in Cameroon. What do we mean by made in Cameroon? Made in Cameroon are graduates from Cameroon. Made in Cameroon are graduates from grammar schools in Cameroon. We want made in Cameroon that we have a pen that is made in Cameroon. That's made in Cameroon. We want made in Cameroon that we can also boast of saying that this Cameroonian is... Somebody came up with a phone industry in Cameroon. It died off. Where is the assistance that we have? Those are the things put together. We would say that government seems not to have, you know, their priority on making Cameroonian students to graduate as job creators, but to help them still graduate as job seekers, seekers of matricles within the public service.
Within the public service. Thank you very much, Mange Venaju. So, Dr. Dennis, what could you advise parents in particular when it comes to directing their children towards which path to follow?
Yes, parents have a great responsibility, because as a parent, I know my child from his tender age. I know what he's able to do, and it's the parent that brings the child to school, not the contrary. So the parent must be a guide. He must guide the child according to his natural talents, natural gifts. If a child can sing, after graduating at primary school level, send him to a school, a vocational school where they train singers and dancers. There's no need for that child to have a bachelor degree in philosophy. It will be useless to the child. So parents should be attentive. They should pay attention to the natural talents of their children, so that they should guide them
towards that path.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis Gishlembesa, for coming. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you also.
Mange Venashus, hope to have you tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow Vanessa will be there.
And ladies and gentlemen, I hope to equally have you tomorrow. Thank you very much for your keen and kind attention. Do stay blessed in the company of programs on DBS Television. Good night.